So, welcome to, what's this podcast called again?
Real Talk
Real Talk.
with Matt Beatty and who is it?
Yeah, so today we're going to talk about listing your home, getting your home ready to list, and our recommendations for getting the most money for your home. Yeah.
I think at this point in the market, you see we see values continuing to climb, even with rates increasing.
Which is like really unique.
Yeah, very unique. And that has a lot to do with what we've talked about in the past, which is the supply and demand situation. You don't have a lot of houses out there to buy, and so buyers are eager to get into something, and they're willing to sacrifice even though the rates have gone up. And they're looking at different products, and we'll kind of touch on that, and just how to help buyers get qualified. But really, they want to see a house that they know they can make their own, right?
Yeah.
I mean, blank canvas has always been a thing, but I think a lot of houses that are out there that are set up nicely and look really good, present well, and get the most out of their offers, right?
Yeah, so before we dig too deep into it, looking into your crystal ball, what do you see rates doing in the coming months? Because there's a juxtaposition here where you want to take your home to market before rates go too high to maximize the amount of money, equity that you get out of the sale. But you also want to list right, and sometimes that takes time. So time is kind of the essence right now because you want to go to market before rates hit 6.5 or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
And so looking into your crystal ball, what do you see rates doing in the near future?
Okay, so if we're going to talk in the short term, so we're looking in through summertime, okay? One of the big things that you have to keep an eye on if you're selling or buying is that in the short term, we're expecting to see still a increase in interest rates, okay? We haven't hit that plateau yet or that ceiling where we feel that the market's come to a point of comfortability. And when I say the market, I'm talking about stocks, bonds, 10-year treasury, mortgage-backed securities. There's a lot of layers in this that help drive interest rates, and the Fed has really, cranked up the oven on interest rates to really push them up higher to try to reduce inflation. We've gone from 7% down to 6.5%, but it's still cooking. So the goal for the Fed is to really push up the interest rates to try to slow down inflation.
Sure.
We've seen it a little bit more in the market, and you can attest to this. It's just you're not seeing the necessarily hundreds of offers on properties like you used to, but you're still seeing a lot of activity. Okay, so certain areas, homes that are priced right, homes that are in good areas that still fit people's budgets are still selling and still getting full price or even above asking offers. Okay, so and that's where the uniqueness of the market is that I would expect to see interest rates still climb. Okay, so I'm still expecting to see 5 3/4 as far as the interest rate by the time we exit out of summer. So right now, you're in the 5s solid on a conventional offer. FHA, depending on where you go to, you're about between 4.75 to about 5 to 5 1/8 as far as the interest rate for an FHA offer, depending on your credit. So it's hard. It's really tough for buyers out there right now. If you're looking at a high balance purchase price, so $800,000 purchase price with 5% down, you're up in the high 5s. Right?
Yeah, so I definitely recommend, if you're a buyer, you've been in the market for a little while, this is Quincy, by the way. If you've been in the market for a little while and you haven't spoken with your loan officer recently, check back in with them and see where your qualifications are and how they've been impacted by the shift in the rates.
Yeah, that's for sure, because it affects your offer and where you're at with it.
So. So if you have a January or even February pre-approval, it's very important that you go and get that updated and make sure where you're at, where the payment's at, in the price point that you're looking in. But you hit a really good point in, consumers are still active despite the hike in rates. Inflation is still not completely under control despite the hike in rates. So we haven't met that comfortability point where things feel like they're, in balance.
And it's unprecedented how much things have changed in a short period of time. Okay, so you'll hear everybody refer back to change in rates all the way back to 2009. You'll hear
Sure.
people talk about the change in the market that'll all go back to 1992. So this change, we are in interest rate territory that has not been explored since about 2009. Okay.
Yeah.
This doesn't mean that interest rates in the 6.5% isn't something that we haven't seen in the past. That was actually, back in 2000 and, geez, I'm going to date myself because I bought my first house and it was 6.5%.
Sure.
But the problem is that the prices weren't up at $800,000.
That is the issue. Yeah.
So it's a balance to kind of see how do we help buyers get to a place where they're investing into the future, because real estate investment is still a positive way to go. It's not like people panic and say, well, should I be investing in real estate? You will not lose if you invest in real estate.
If you buy and hold.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you're buying and holding for a long period of time, you are always going to be on the winning side of the
Absolutely.
deal. Okay. It's just you have to weather the storm and where we are right now.
Sure.
Because I'm sure everybody would agree, 30 years from now, home values are still going to be higher than they are today.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, if you're holding long term, then you're going to be all right. And especially if you're talking about home, if you're talking about an investment, that's a little more transitory. But if you're talking about home, that's home, and what's it worth to you?
Yeah. And you got to think about the offsetting cost. If you didn't own your home, you'd be paying rent, and rent is also increasing. So, I was looking at a place in Bellflower as an investment property. It was a 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath. It's about 900 square feet, and the average rent on it is $3,000 a month.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's expensive.
Yeah.
You're going to be paying it one way or another. Why not pay it to yourself and the equity that you could build in your property?
Sure. Even if you have to, so the house that you're paying rent on at $3,250, $3,400, $3,500 a month, your mortgage, to get your mortgage with 3.5 down at 32, 35, you're looking at like a $400,000 condo, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I would much rather own a condo than rent a house, So you make sacrifices now for a better retirement, a better future, more options in the future. And the entire time you're living there, you're going to work, you're, just time's flying by and you're paying down the balance on your property, So you're growing wealth while you're just living, which is a really cool scenario.
Yeah, and then, circling back to where we started with talking about listing your property and making it more attractive. As the market changes and we have less buyers in the market, you want to maximize your potential with your property so that you can make it attractive to these buyers who are really putting in a lot of money in order to buy this.
Dude, that was so smooth just
Thanks,
now.
I appreciate it.
I love how you brought that full circle. I was like, how are we going to get back to what we're... Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a really good point. So had an open house over the weekend. I'm used to, a major line outside of the open house. And we had maybe 30 parties come through. I used to have 30 parties come through in an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
Exactly.
the buyer pool has definitely constricted a little bit, which makes it more important than it was this time last year to make sure that you're presenting your property, as optimally as you can.
Yeah, yeah. And just to get the most money that you can for the property, because it goes back to if you're in the buyer's position and they're spending this much to buy a property, it has to be attractive to them. They got to see themselves building a life there. And, before, I think you would attest to this, a lot of sellers would just say, hey, this is my property, take it as is.
And
that's
people
how
would.
walk it. And then it would, exactly. But I think that's going to be coming around where it's going to be a little bit more challenging to get offers accepted like that, especially if you want top value for your property.
Oh, absolutely. If you're not going to do the work, top value isn't even an option. Presentation is super important, and I think this would be a good time to go into the exact details of what I recommend people do. So first and foremost, I would remediate any dark spaces. People walk into a room and it's dark, it automatically makes the space look smaller, makes it uninviting, it makes it cold, and it makes it not a good experience. We like brightness. You know, we want our little slice of heaven.
Yeah.
And if you ever look at a photo of heaven, it's never dark.
Yeah, that's true.
So brighten up, you know. If you've got big curtains, maybe consider taking them off altogether, not just opening them up. Take the curtains down, bring in as much light as possible. If you've got shutters, you know, adjust them optimally so that there's as much light flooding into the home as possible, because the light creates a more inviting atmosphere, it makes it feel bigger, and it allows people to imagine themselves there, you know? So light is so important.
So on that topic, real quick, sorry, just not to take you off path, but so if you have a tree outside that maybe is providing a little bit heavier shade to your area or a room in your house, would you suggest trimming that tree back just so that it allows that light?
So every situation is different, and I definitely recommend you discuss that with your realtor, you know, because if it's a beautiful tree, you don't want to harm, you know, the beautiful tree. And also, depending on which direction your home is facing, you might like that shade, you know, at sunset. Or you might like that shade when the sun rises, you know, just depending on the tree. So there's a lot of variables involved with that. But if you do have this situation, we can move into the other part of lighting, which is it's incredibly cost effective. And I highly recommend recessed lighting with a higher Kelvin. 2700 Kelvin is going to be like an orangish yellowish light. That is very 2000.
Okay.
You know,
warm lighting is what
the warm lighting. Yeah, you want more bright but not sterile. So I recommend going up around 3200 Kelvin. So if you do have this shade event going on in your house, and that's going to be blocking a lot of natural light that comes into your home, supplement that light with really good updated recessed lighting, and it's going to pay you, you know, 4 to 1 at least in the ultimate sales price.
Okay, that's cool. I didn't think about that. Yeah, adding that, and then the brightness of the light itself and how it affects the room.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so, and then another thing when it comes to brightness, I'm a big advocate of light and bright when listing. You know, if you've got a pop wall, you know, you've got like a dark turquoise wall somewhere, or a green, or something like that, or even a lighter yellow or something like that, I definitely recommend painting over those, you know, with a white, a light gray, and maybe a light beige. I see that coming back in. We were grayscale for maybe the last 10 years. I see, you know, that the taupe, the brown scale coming back in, but in really light variations of it.
Gotcha. Okay, so really that provides a lighter feeling to the room, and then it kind of helps, like with what you were saying with the lighting, kind of bounce that light around and just increase that airy lightness to the room scenario.
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
Angelic feel.
Yeah.
Going back to heavenly.
And then another thing is just like optimizing the space, the amount of space, making the place feel as big as it possibly can, and that goes to decluttering. Okay. You know, so there's two parts of decluttering. You don't want to declutter moments, and by moments I mean maybe a decorative towel on a dining room table with a runner and some coffee mugs. That creates a moment so people can imagine themselves there, and it's cute, you know? That kind of stuff don't declutter. But just like excessive stuff that's on the surfaces of your kitchen counters, of your dining room table, you want to get rid of those things. But remember, you're going to be living in the house while it's for sale, in most cases.
Yes.
Unless you've already moved out and the place is vacant. In which case, I definitely recommend staging. We can come back to that. But you want to keep your house functional, but also aesthetically pleasing. So get tubs where, you know, you can access all of the things that would normally be on your counters that make life easy. You can easily just put them away in a little tub, put it in your storage, in your kitchen cabinets or whatever.
Gotcha.
And you can bring it out and put it away very easily and seamlessly, because you don't want to put yourself in a situation where you're living in your home, but you're incredibly uncomfortable. That makes for a an uncomfortable and unhappy seller.
Yeah. Well, and then you think a lot of the things that we have a tendency to leave out, we may not always need every single day.
That's
in
right.
Every single moment.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's just, you fill a space, as you've been there several years, all of a sudden you grow to the space and you start adding these components there.
Sure.
So yes, decluttering is definitely, it's also great for you if you think about it as a seller, because you're moving some of this stuff out of your life and you start to reevaluate, do I really need this stuff?
That's right. That's right. And it's super important, I think, not just for the listing, but for you as a person to not have too much like junk around, like it's just not good to have it. And this is a really good time to get rid of the thing that you haven't touched or used in years, This is a great time to unload a lot of that stuff that's no longer functional or useful for you.
Makes sense.
Speaking of functional and useful, I have noticed a lot of people taking great interest in the garage lately, and I think there's multiple reasons for that, but I do think one of them is ADUs. The laws have changed, and people are considering that as a place when, mom can't live on her own anymore, or dad or the uncle can't live on their own anymore. They're converting their garages at a higher rate than we've ever seen. So I used to say, just lock up the garage. It's a 2-car garage. If it's finished or not finished, we know the details. Everybody's seen a garage, and it is what it is. But people want to see the garages now. So I do recommend getting a pod,
I was going to ask you about that because, there's only so much you can put under your sink in a tub. So is it time to make that decision to maybe move it into a pod?
The pods, I've got a listing coming up in Lakewood right now. They come out so quickly, and you fill the thing up, and they come out, next day and pick it up. And when you're ready to transition into your new space, they'll deliver it there, and it's just a really great way to go. I used to recommend getting a storage unit, but now I think the pod is the way to go, unless you need a ton of space. If we're talking about, 3,000 plus square foot homes, you're probably going to be getting more furnishings and stuff out of the house. You might want to get like a rental unit, like a PS storage or something like that. But a 2,000 square foot house, you can probably fit everything that you need to get out of the house into a pod.
Yeah. And do you have an idea like what those costs are for a pod?
I don't pay for them, Julio.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
Just thought I would ask. Just
Hey,
to see.
But do you know what? If we list your home, I'll pay for your pod. That's my new deal.
There you go. Pod paid for here. You guys heard it here.
You heard it here first.
The commitment.
Yeah. Because again, even though the rates are going up and we have all these things going on, we still desperately need more inventory.
Yeah.
The turnover when I got licensed in real estate was an average of 7 years that people lived in their house, and now it's more than 12 and a half.
Really?
Yeah. And so people are hanging out a little bit longer. And these young families need homes to move into, There's no new inventory, so.
Yeah, we're not making more properties as much as we would like
No,
in the area. So
no, definitely not.
Land is premium.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the next thing is do the small repairs in advance. The small repairs. If they're big repairs, then, you might want to pass that on to the buyer. In 2020, I'm saying take it live, and you have all the negotiating power as the seller, but the market is shifting more towards a buyer's market, not to say we are in a buyer's market. So if you've got, small plumbing issues, small electrical issues, if you've got faulty hardware in your kitchen, contact a handyman and take care of this stuff. They can usually get it all done in 2 days, very affordably, and that's going to help alleviate a lot of stress on the escrow process.
Can you give me an example of what you would describe as a small repair that they would consider? So, I know if you say electrical or plumbing, sometimes people freak out with those kind of words.
Sure.
So what would be an example of a smaller repair that someone should consider?
Yeah. Well, if you have a non-functional light switch in your house, there might be an issue at the breaker. you know, that can be repaired quickly and easily, and avoid this like major concerning question from the buyer who might not know about, you know, about these sorts of things. Avoid that question altogether. They're like, oh, this one's not working. Is the rest of the house gonna go bad? Is the electrical system faulty? You know, let's replace the breaker and get that light switch working again.
Gotcha.
Or maybe it's just the switch. Another thing I notice a lot on vinyl sliding doors is that the latches start to fail after like 4 or 5 years, you know? This is an easy fix to where somebody's walking through the house, they love the house, they love the flooring, they love the lighting, they love the little moments, little cutesy moments that you set up around the house, and then they go to the backyard and they're having an issue with the
door,
the latch.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's very common. I didn't think about that.
It's super common. I run into it all the time, and it's such an easy fix and an easy thing to avoid. And unless you're very handy, I don't recommend repairing them yourself because your time is more valuable doing what you do. You know, get somebody who does this sort of thing because they'll be in and out. It'll save you time and ultimately make you money on the sale of your home.
One of the things that I see happens, which surprises me a lot, is what is called exposed wiring, which has a tendency to be like a junction box where the cap is off and the wiring is technically exposed. So everything's secure, capped, and all taken care of, but because it doesn't have a physical cap, it's called out in inspection reports, and you know, it's just, it looks cleaner if you can just get a cap. And that's a real simple fix, but I'm amazed at how many times that shows up. It's in garages, it's usually in some obscure space in your house.
You'd
so
be
it's just better to
amazed.
fix it.
You'd be amazed how important it is to bring in a third party who doesn't live in your home. You know, because when you live somewhere, you start to not even see things that are right in front of you. You know, because you're so used to it that you just don't even see it. Now, I don't recommend you adopting that attitude towards the people in your home, but I'm talking about the features, the features of your home. You just get so used
Step
to
right
it.
over your kid. Just the, don't mind my child, he's just laying on the floor.
The features of your home, it's easy to like not even see things anymore. Like my air fryer that's on my kitchen counter, I don't even see it anymore until I need it, which is about 6 times a week. I love my air fryer. I recommend you get an air fryer.
Yeah, it's amazing, actually.
They're amazing.
We bought one. I was like, I can't believe how much we use this thing.
They're incredible. I highly recommend an air fryer. But yeah, so when your realtor comes through, they're gonna notice these small things, and you're gonna notice that 2 things. They wanna get this stuff repaired, and they wanna get it repaired quickly because the market is in flux. And right now, prices haven't dipped from the downward pressure from rates, but all of our crystal balls are broken after 2020. You know, in 2020, there's a 40% unemployment rate and home prices went up 20%. It's like, okay, what world are we in? What is really actually going on here? Because none of that makes any sense. So nothing makes sense to me anymore. I know that the market is still strong for sellers, and so when you're doing these repairs that we're talking about and getting your home ready for sale, I don't recommend taking a long time doing it. Knock it out in a week or 2 and get that puppy ready for a spring sale.
Yeah, because especially in this time of year where we're at, if you can get your property ready before summer, that's where we have the greatest flux of business that comes in because kids are out of school. So you don't want to hold off until you're falling into the fall season. Not that you can't get your home sold, but you know, you just want to get as many eyes on your property as possible.
Absolutely, yeah. I recommend at least a 1 week coming soon while you're prepping the place, you know? So that's just gonna be a nice photo of the front of the house, maybe a photo from the interior, but you're getting the house ready during this coming soon process. And then when you go live, you can drop all the photos, or you can prep the house, then do coming soon with all of the photos. It just depends on your situation, but I definitely don't recommend waiting to go to market, considering the rate that we feel and see everything shifting.
Can I ask you a question about?
No.
Like, okay. So, I'm gonna ask it anyways. Suck it. Well, so if you have a house, you've done the coming soons, you've already prepped it and like painted it, what do you think about professionally cleaning it? Like
It's a
having
must.
that done? Is it a must?
It's an absolute must.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I noticed that a lot of times people put their house on the market and it's like you walk into a place that just it feels like it's been lived in. Okay?
Yeah.
Just this isn't talking about that somebody's living in filth. I'm just saying lived in. Like if right now if I put my house on the market, I think I would feel embarrassed because you know, we haven't gone through spring cleaning where we could clean like window sills, where we could clean the baseboards.
Yeah.
Because those are things that you don't clean on a weekly basis or a daily basis.
Yeah.
So they need special attention, and I think that gets forgotten. And it's a very simple thing to do, where you can have somebody come in and do that.
It's super simple, and one of the big things about a deep clean is it also removes odors.
I was gonna say that. It
Yeah,
smells.
like odors are super critical. When people come into your home, unless they're investors, if they're people who are going to be owner occupants, it's so important that they have a good, inviting experience, and they go in happy and they leave happy. You know, or if they go in unhappy, that they leave happy. Like this has to be a good experience because, regardless of what they see, you know, they're going to be swayed by how they felt.
Yeah.
You know? And so, and another thing about smells and stuff like that is, you know, the vent fan in the kitchen. That accumulates a lot of smell and odor from the foods that have been sucked up there.
Yeah.
You know? Replace those filters in the vent fan. Replace the filters for the AC unit.
Yeah.
You know? And because all of these things accumulate odors that you might not even smell because you live in the home.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and it's natural cooking stuff. Our spices,
Exactly.
like if you've roasted something, or you know, something got burned at one time or another, the scent just kind of sticks in the house. And so you want, you know, it was the old realtor trick with baking cookies.
Yeah.
Remember, so
Yeah.
that you have that
Smells like
home
cookies.
feel, you know, as soon as people walk into the house. So
Sure.
smells matter.
Yeah, yeah,
Big time.
absolutely, absolutely. But everybody's on keto now, so maybe
Everything smells like meat. High protein.
that would make me happy. You know,
It smells like a barbecue.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's who you attracting as the buyer.
yeah. And just real quick, we kind of touched on this, but paint. Like, you know, if your home is not light in color, paint is the number one most cost-effective way to improve the performance of your home on market.
Both interior and exterior, or just interior?
Both.
Both, right?
Yeah, yeah.